What happened to Hitler's top military commanders after Germany lost the war? During World War II, German Field Marshals held the highest military rank. They were the elite of the Nazi military machine, trusted by Hitler to fulfill his vision of conquest. But their power and prestige ended suddenly with Germany's defeat in 1945. How did these once powerful military leaders face the consequences of their actions after Germany's defeat? In this video, we're going to find out. So, without further delay, let's start with the first name on our list. Walther von Brauchitsch. Born into a military family, Walther von Brauchitsch followed in his ancestors' footsteps, building a career in the German army that saw him rise to commander-in-chief of the German army from 1938 to 1941. Von Brauchitzka's military career was known for his strategic expertise, especially during the successful Blitzkrieg campaigns of 1939 and 1940. He oversaw major operations in Poland, France, and the Low Countries. However, despite his early successes, his time as commander-in-chief was weakened by his inability to control Adolf Hitler's increasing involvement in military affairs.
Hitlers micromanagement undercut von
Brauchitzsch's authority, particularly during crucial campaigns like the invasion of the Soviet Union in 1941, which eventually led to disaster for Germany on the Eastern Front. His health declined, leading to a heart attack in November 1941. This health crisis, combined with the failure of Operation Typhoon, the assault on Moscow, resulted in his dismissal by Hitler in December 1941. From that point on, von Brauchitsch spent the rest of the war in forced retirement at his estate, effectively sidelined from any further military involvement. The war's end brought a dramatic change to von Brauchitzka's situation. In August 1945, British forces arrested him on war crimes charges. He was held in custody for 3 years, waiting to stand trial for his actions during the war. However, fate had different plans for the former Feldmarschall. On October 18, 1948, just as he was about to face prosecution, Walther von Brauchitsch died of pneumonia. His death before trial raised questions about justice and accountability for high-ranking military leaders after the war. The man who once commanded Hitler's armies would never have to answer for his deeds in a court of law. Maximilian von Weix had a military career marked by both significant achievements and actions that caused controversy. As a field marshal in the German army, he led the Second Army during major military campaigns, including the invasions of France, Yugoslavia, and the Soviet Union. His part in these operations placed him at the forefront of Nazi Germany's war efforts. In 1944, he was appointed commander of German forces in the Balkans, where his duties included putting down partisan resistance movements in Yugoslavia and Greece. His time in the Balkans was defined by brutal anti-partisan operations and widespread atrocities against civilians, reflecting the increasingly desperate measures the German military took in the later stages of the war. Von Weix retired from his military career on March 25, 1945, and was arrested by American troops in May. The Nuremberg trials, established to bring Nazi war criminals to justice, included von Weix among those slated for prosecution. Specifically, he was scheduled to participate in the U.S. Army hostages trial, facing charges related to the suppression of partisans in the Balkans. In a surprising turn of events, von Weix was removed from the proceedings before being judged or sentenced. The official reason given was medical grounds, a justification that raises ethical questions about accountability for war crimes. This decision allowed von Weix to avoid prosecution despite his alleged involvement in serious wartime atrocities. Maximilian von Weix died on September 27, 1954, in Bonn, West Germany, at the age of 72. George von Küchler's military career began early, as he joined the German army in 1900. Rising through the ranks, he gained experience during World War I and continued his service through the interwar years, where he specialized in artillery. Von Küchler's military career reached its peak during World War II, when he commanded the 18th Army and later Army Group North. His role in the invasion of the Soviet Union was significant, but it also led to his downfall. Von Kuckler's actions during the war, particularly his harsh military policies and involvement in war crimes, would eventually catch up with him. Von Kuckler was promoted to Field Marshal in 1942. By early 1944, with the Red Army making significant advances, von Kuckler was relieved of his command by Adolf Hitler due to his failure to stop Soviet counteroffensives. He then retired from his professional duties. During his retirement, von Kuckler declined an invitation to join the anti-Hitler movement. At the end of the war, von Kuckler was arrested by the American Army. Unlike some of his counterparts, von Kuckler faced the consequences of his actions. In the High Command trial, he stood accused of war crimes and crimes against humanity committed in the Soviet Union. The trial revealed the extent of his involvement in atrocities, including the murder of mentally disabled individuals in occupied territories. During the proceedings, von Kuckler admitted to the harsh conditions in POW camps, but attributed them mainly to winter conditions, which he described as an act of God. He also claimed that the Army exaggerated POW mortality rates to get more supplies. Despite these attempts to lessen his responsibility, the court found him guilty. Von Kuckler's conviction resulted in a 20-year prison sentence. However, his time behind bars was shortened when his sentence was reviewed and reduced to 12 years in 1951. In February 1953, von Kuckler was released from prison, having served less than a decade for his crimes. He was released in February 1953 and went on to live with his wife in the Garmisch region. He passed away in Garmisch-Partenkirchen on May 25, 1968. Wilhelm Ritter von Lieb. Wilhelm Ritter von Lieb was a career military officer who began his service in the Bavarian Army. He rose through the ranks during World War I, where he proved himself a capable officer, earning several medals, including the prestigious Military Order of Max Joseph, which gave him a noble title. As a result, Lieb's surname was changed to Ritter von Lieb. Von Lieb commanded Army Group C during the invasion of France in 1940, playing a key role in the swift defeat of French forces. His success in this campaign earned him a promotion to Field Marshal. On March 30, 1941, von Lieb was among over 200 senior military officers who attended a speech given by Adolf Hitler. In this address, Hitler laid out his vision for an ideological war of annihilation against the Soviet Union. During Operation Barbarossa, von Lieb was assigned to lead Army Group North. His objective was to advance through the Baltic states and capture the vital city of Leningrad. His forces were implicated in war crimes against civilians, working closely with the SS Einsatzgruppen, which were responsible for mass executions, particularly targeting the Jewish population. Von Lieb was also involved in issuing the Barbarossa Decree, which authorized the killing of Soviet political commissars and harsh treatment of Soviet prisoners of war. On January 15, 1942, von Lieb requested that Hitler either grant him full control of his command or relieve him of his duties. Hitler chose to relieve him, and von Kuckler took over as commander of Army Group North. Von Lieb was never given another command by Hitler. Von Lieb was tried in the High Command trial. Despite serious accusations, von Lieb's trial resulted in a surprisingly light sentence. His defense attorney presented him as a humane soldier who hadn't seen or issued criminal orders, arguing that his troops' actions were due to battle conditions and military necessity. The court found von Lieb guilty of transmitting the Barbarossa Decree and its criminal application by subordinate units. However, he received only a 3-year prison sentence, which he effectively had already served. The judgment stated, "No criminal order has been presented as evidence that bears his signature or stamp of his approval." Von Lieb's case highlights the complexities of post-war trials, where some high-ranking officers received minimal punishment. He passed away on January 20, 1956, in Munich, West Germany. This outcome potentially undermines the principles of accountability and reconciliation. The trials were meant to uphold those principles. It's worth noting that even though he got a light sentence, von Leep had already received significant financial benefits from the Nazi regime. This included secret gifts of 250,000 Reichsmarks and an estate worth 660,000 Reichsmarks, showing he was involved and rewarded for his loyalty. After von Leep was released, he went back to his estate in Hohenschwangau, Bavaria. He sadly passed away in 1956 after a heart attack. Paul Ludwig von Kleist came from a long line of military service families. His career covered both World War I and World War II. Von Kleist was especially known for his commanding role during the early Blitzkrieg campaigns. He led the 1st Panzer Group during the invasion of France in 1940. He directed a rapidly advancing armored force that broke through deep into French defenses. This significantly contributed to a fast German victory. In 1941, von Kleist was part of Operation Barbarossa, commanding the 1st Panzer Army. He led his army through some of the biggest tank battles ever. These included trapping Soviet forces around Oman and Kiev. These operations caused massive casualties for the Red Army. They also helped the initial German push into Soviet territory. However, von Kleist's campaigns in the Soviet Union also showed the limits of German military strategy. Logistical issues and the brutal Russian winter eventually stopped the offensive. These problems ultimately stalled the advance. Von Kleist's career took a major turn in 1942 when he was appointed commander of Army Group A for the offensive into the Caucasus. His forces were meant to seize the region's vital oil fields, but the campaign faltered because German resources were stretched too thin and the Soviets fiercely resisted. By early 1943, the Germans were forced to retreat from the Caucasus, marking a crucial turning point in the war. On March 30, 1944, after a series of setbacks and retreats, von Kleist was dismissed by Hitler. Hitler increasingly distrusted his military commanders. Ferdinand Schorner took over his command. Following the failed attempt to assassinate Hitler on July 20, 1944, known as the July 20th plot, the Gestapo implicated and arrested von Kleist. This happened because his cousin was involved in the Oster conspiracy. Despite being arrested, von Kleist managed to avoid a trial and was eventually released. After the war, von Kleist was captured by Allied forces and sent to Yugoslavia.